Good evening. Welcome to our April budget workshop. Just as I was about to turn it over to Dr. Bradley.
All right.
I will now turn the reins over to Dr. Bradley. For
All right.
our
Thank you,
workshop.
Madam Chair, members of the board. Good evening. Thank you so much for being with us, and thanks to everyone who's joining us this evening. Today's budget workshop has a single aim of providing an initial view of the proposed FY27 budget. It is important to note that this is just a draft, where we acknowledge that this document remains subject to material adjustments before final approval. But if there is a defining theme for this budget, it would be strategic reduction, executed in a way that preserves our academic focus and maintains operational integrity. For the past several months, we have provided regular updates to our staff and community on the development of this budget. That has been by design. Along the way, members of each division team, many of whom are with us this evening, have made numerous practical and strategic contributions which are reflected in this draft. As was previously shared, allow me to walk you through some of the high-level fundamentals of this budget proposal. First, this budget was designed with a presumptive 10% reduction across each division, which is significant considering that the majority of our resources go to salary and benefits. As you will see, some divisions were able to achieve this benchmark and others were not. Second, you should know that state revenues have not yet been received, so we are currently operating on projections, which this year have been more difficult to conceive. Additionally, Joint Development Authority revenue sharing details have not yet been finalized, so we're using last year's figures as a baseline. We are also absorbing within this budget step increases for eligible teachers and staff, obligatory health insurance increases, and salary refinements for personnel categories that were not included in last year's classification and compensation study. Board, it is also worth noting that we are operating within limited financial parameters this year. Those parameters have been shaped by conditions that have been discussed ad nauseum for several months now, not the least of which include rising insurance premiums, increases to the local fair share, and declining enrollment. The confluence of these factors are consequential to our budget's design and will remain key considerations for the foreseeable future. Nonetheless, this budget draft reflects a good faith response to those conditions. Momentarily, each chief will provide an overview of their respective division budgets, highlighting key reductions, key investments, sustained commitments, and any requested personnel adjustments. I would also ask that you pay particular attention to the year-over-year budget differentials as well. The order of presentation will proceed from the divisions with the largest budgets to those with the smallest. And of course, we will avail ourselves for any board questions or discussion. But first, Ms. Erica Robinson, our CFO, will provide additional context for our proposed FY27 budget. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. As we look ahead to the fiscal year 2027, I would like to share the projected changes in revenue. On the state side, we are anticipating a net decrease of approximately $7.4 million. While there are some increases built in, such as funding for state health benefit plan contributions and adjustments for training and experience, those gains are more than offset by an increase in the local fair share contribution, along with other areas that are still to be determined. On the local revenue side, we are projecting an increase of approximately $11.7 million, primarily driven by continued growth in the local tax digest as a result of changes in assessed property values across the community. This growth, along with other local revenue adjustments, helps to offset reductions in state funding and increasing cost pressures. These combined revenues are necessary to maintain operations and limit reductions in services for students and staff. Turning now to expenditures, the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget totals $268.7 million, reflecting an overall decrease of $1.4 million from the fiscal year 26 amended budget. Based on a projected enrollment of 18,292 students, the estimated per pupil expenditure for fiscal year '27 is $14,695. Key drivers of this budget include step increases for eligible employees, rising employer costs for health insurance premiums and TRS contribution rates, and adjustments to the district's 403B plan design. Currently, the district contributes 5.5% of salary for employees participating in the teachers' retirement system and 6.5% for those participating in the public school employees' retirement system. Under the proposed change, the district will implement a matching structure for TRS-covered employees, providing a dollar-for-dollar match of employee contributions up to 5% of salary, while maintaining the existing 6.5% contribution for employees participating in the public school employees retirement system. This updated approach modernizes the plan design, encourages employee participation in retirement savings, and supports the long-term sustainability of the district's benefit offerings while continuing to provide a competitive retirement benefit for employees. On this slide, the breakdown of proposed budgeted expenditures is provided. These allocations signify the distribution of resources among different categories. As in previous years, the largest portion is allocated to salaries and benefits, ensuring continued support for staffing and district operations. Other categories such as textbooks and supplies, utilities and fuel, repairs and maintenance, as well as investments in computers and equipment, continue to reflect the district's focus on maintaining strong academic programs and operational efficiency while adapting to evolving financial obligations. Given that salaries and benefits represents the largest portion of our budget, it is helpful to examine how these funds are allocated across different functions. This chart provides a breakdown of salaries and benefits by functional area. The majority, which is 65.83%, is dedicated to direct instruction, including compensation for teachers and paraprofessionals who are central to student learning. School administration accounts for 7.62% and includes principals, assistant principals, and school-based office staff who support daily operations. Another 6.11% is allocated to pupil services, which play a key role in supporting students' health and well-being. Student transportation represents 5.12% of salaries and benefits. Altogether, these student-focused areas comprise 84.68% of the total salaries and benefits budget, highlighting the district's continued emphasis on investing in services that directly support students each day. Presented on this slide is the summary of expenditure budgets by division. Next, we will proceed with presentations from the division leads. Beginning our series is the Division of Learning and Leadership under the guidance of Ms. Tracy Blackburn.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm pleased to present the proposed Division of Learning and Leadership FY27 budget. Our focus this year continues to center on strengthening instructional core, supporting our leaders and teachers, and ensuring that every decision is aligned to improving student outcomes across Newton County schools. The FY27 proposed budget for the Division of Learning and Leadership reflects a continued commitment to strategic alignment and fiscal responsibility. The reductions across the departments are primarily driven by targeted adjustments while maintaining stability across key instructional areas. Where you see increased amounts, those are a result of moving funds from one department budget to another. Overall, the division reflects a decrease of $368,658 from the previous year. In alternative programming, reductions were made to streamline operations while maintaining student support. These include reductions in supplemental instructional support, platform cost, contractual services, equipment, and travel. In assessment, accountability, research, and evaluation, we implemented significant reductions in the areas such as assessment audit support, data systems, and assessment platforms. Additionally, reductions were made in materials such as GMAS headphones. Within athletics, reductions were made in program services and operational costs, including concussion evaluation tools and supplies. For gifted and intervention programs, reductions were made across program supplies, equipment, and summer programming costs. Reductions were also made to assessment materials. In psychology, reductions focused on operational efficiencies, including supplies and travel. Within school leadership, reductions include stipends for leadership mentors and coaches, supplies, professional development resources, equipment, and travel. In student services, reductions were made in Infinite Campus licensing, reducing the printing of student handbooks in agenda format, professional development, and conference registrations. In teaching and learning, reductions reflect a continued effort to streamline resources and align expenditures to highest impact investments. A reduction was made in costs associated with summer programming for both materials and salaries. There is a reduction in resources of Discovery Education and Magic School AI. Next, I'd like to highlight our strategic investments focused on advancing performance across the district. These investments are centered on strengthening instruction, supporting teachers, and expanding opportunities for students. We are continuing our investment in high-quality instructional material resources, ensuring teachers have access to high-quality, standards-aligned instructional materials that meet state requirements. We're continuing to invest in CTAE equipment upgrades to ensure our programs remain aligned to industry standards. Our investments for continuous improvement are focused on building the capacity of our people and strengthening systems across the district. We're supporting professional learning for CTAE teachers, as well as ongoing development for our administrators and aspiring leaders. We're also investing in professional learning for our teachers related to core resources. We're continuing to invest in data systems, ensuring teachers and leaders have access to needed resources to meet student needs. Finally, we look at our critical investments to support instruction and operations. A key focus is sustaining our assessment system through investing in our K-10 universal screener for reading and math, ensuring early identification of student needs and timely intervention while meeting requirements of Georgia mandates. In addition, we're maintaining critical instructional platforms such as Infinite Campus and other core systems which support both instruction and operations across the district. We are prioritizing resources closest to students, including tools such as Edgenuity and other digital learning platforms which provide flexible pathways for credit recovery, acceleration, and personalized learning. We also continue to support specialized programs such as CTAE, STEM, and robotics, ensuring students have access to diverse, high-quality learning experiences. Together, these investments ensure our teachers are equipped, our systems are aligned, and our students are supported at the highest level. As we look at personnel, this budget reflects a very disciplined and intentional approach. There are no new positions, no position upgrades, and no budget-neutral additions across the division. The Learning and Leadership budget represents a balanced approach to maintain strong instructional support while responding responsibly to fiscal restraints. Together, these investments strengthen the connection between data, instruction, and student outcomes to empower our teachers, ensure that every student is supported at the highest level. Madam Chair, this concludes my presentation, but I remain available for board discussion or questions. Board members, do you all have a question? Okay. You go ahead. Go ahead.
First question is just right off the bat. You said total proposed budget is 2.996, is that right? And then with a savings of 642? Just trying to,
My totals here.
yeah, I'm trying to make my numbers match page 6, which is, I think, the one we're kind of going off of.
Yes. So what is your question? I had that the overall difference of looking at all of the division of learning and leadership was a decrease of 368,658.
Okay, so just, Erica, can you help me find that?
That's what I had.
Just so I'm, yeah, come on, if that's all right, all right. Show me that number, where am I?
So, you mind if I write on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you have to add all these together, so this is not,
What is that? That would be a helpful number, by the way, but, all right, so one more time, what is that number?
Okay,
It's
I had 368,658.
and that is a decrease
That's a decrease.
Over
Overall decrease.
last
of-
year?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That number is not in here anywhere, right? Am I just making sure?
No,
Okay, all right.
because they're all listed individually.
We'd have to add it up to get the overall total to come up with her 368.
Okay.
Because it's not, there's not a total in that
Got you.
line item.
This is going to be for every department, by the way.
In,
Well, every department. who
Every
presents.
department within the division
I'm
of
gonna ask,
learning and leadership.
How much is the increase or decrease? What's that percentage? That's going to be the next question. This looks about 10%, is that right?
no, so my percentage is, I believe I had it calculated at 4.59%.
Okay,
So we did not get to the full 10%.
4.9 or 5, which is?
59, 4.59.
5.9, thank you. All right, then the only other question I have within that division, based on the presentation, is the K-10 universal screeners, 792,000. Last year, we had a conversation around how many times we needed to do that screener. Is this the cost for every time you have to use the screener? Like, how's the cost determined?
No, it is a flat rate for the resource itself.
Based
It
on
also includes the
FTE.
intervention. Yeah, so for all of our students, kindergarten through 10th grade, so it includes the universal screening and then also the intervention platform for the students that are doing the MyPath part of it.
Okay, got you.
It also includes resources for the teachers.
But this is an increase over last year, or that's the total cost?
So we had it in 2 budgets last year. Dr. Everett, is it in a net? Where is she? Yes, hi. So last year we had it in our assessment budget and also in our teaching and learning budget. So this year we moved it all into one budget. Is it a net increase or decrease?
So is the majority of the 792 new costs? Okay. Do we know how much of the 792,000 are new costs?
I will get that number to you.
Okay. It sounds like we don't have a choice in the matter. If it's for the universal
It's
screeners, I don't want to
actually a
just,
fixed cost.
right, so I don't want to argue a moot cost,
Yeah.
moot point. Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you. So I have a question. Actually, Trey asked one of my questions here because he asked about the 10%. So you confirmed that it's not 10% for your department, your division, it's 4.59%. So my question leads into the budget reductions that you went through very fast. So on those budget reductions, when I look at them, so that was gonna pose my question of the 10%, because when you look at these numbers, it looked like, they're only, if from page 12 to 15, like this can only be like either one person or a half a person based on some of these numbers. Well, can you explain some of these numbers to me? And I can give you examples. So like, budget reduction, registration fees for gifted and MTSS conferences, that's only $400. Salaries for Camp Ignite, it's only $7,000. It's very low amounts, right? Travel costs to local school for psychologists, that's only $3,500. Stipends for leadership mentors and coaches, that's only $2,000. So it's sounding, travel costs to attend PL conferences in local schools for EDs, that's only $500. So it's sounding like it's not even a whole person. Like, so where did these numbers come from?
I don't understand what you mean by like a whole person.
So how did you derive just to cut $500 from travel costs to attend PL conferences and local school EDs? Let's use page 14 as an example.
I'll let Ms. Blackburn answer the question, but just to give a little bit of context, I think the charge that we gave chiefs was wherever there can be reductions, find them. And so long as they don't impact the integrity of the programming. So if there is a number that looks odd, it is because the assessment was that the program can be sustained even though we're reducing those numbers. It may not necessarily reflect an individual, but the idea is to maintain the integrity of the program, but scrape the bottom of the barrel. So I think that's kind of how we came up with those arbitrary numbers.
And also to note, school leadership budget was cut by 10%. So some of our budgets were not cut by 10%, but a lot of them were. So school leadership did meet the 10% mark. We did have some other budgets that had to increase. For example, as we had shared previously when we approved the athletic trainer contract, that was an increased cost that caused the athletic budget to increase, but his overall budget did decrease by 10%, but then we had that increase. So that's one reason why a lot of these did get cut by the 10%, but then we had some of those increases.
We had a discussion about that at the meeting. So I got, at the board meeting, I got that one. My question is regarding pages 12 through 15. Like, so the numbers do seem odd, right? Because they're just kind of like numbers. So that's my question. How did these numbers appear? Because they don't look like a whole person, a whole registration, a whole travel thing. It just looks like made up numbers.
Can I make sure I'm reading this? Okay, you're on page 12.
12 through.
Just do an example. Salary.
And I did an example, Madam Chair. I gave the example of page 14, travel costs to attend PL conferences and local schools for EDs. I gave that.
That's different than what we got in our original budget. That's what I'm having trouble going back and forth. So travel costs for MTSS, PLEADs, that would be on page 16 of the document that we received earlier to preview. And here there's, well, that's not MTS. Yes,
That was one I
MTS
named
lead is
too.
10,000. So last year's budget was 10,000 and this year's budget is 10,000.
Right. So
But I have yet to find the ED, sorry.
that's all right. I think she's looking at the presentation versus that, which is where they list the amount that was deducted. So on page 12, where it says the gifted intervention, the salaries for Camp Ignite was a decrease of $7,000, and then the equipment. So they were all asked to cut the 10% and then even go back and see if there was additional areas, which might be why there's a difference from.
And that's what I was saying, is there's $7,000 here in your presentation salary for Camp Ignite. There's a difference in 7,000 decrease. So we're going from 50,000 last year to 43,000 this year.
Right. Yes. And so they were asked to just find areas that they felt like they could decrease. And so, whether it was, that they looked at their travel this year and saw that it didn't meet all the way up to that previous budget, so they were able to shave some of it off, or if they're planning on, reducing programs like Camp Ignite might not have as many sections next summer because we're having to cut it by $7,000. So that's where they were asked to just find areas that they felt like they could cut it back.
So it's just, so what you're saying, I'm gonna read between the lines. What you're saying is just made up numbers. So that was my question, because my question was, how did you derive these numbers? Because it doesn't seem like so give an example. When I gave the example, registration fee, this does not seem like a whole registration for $400, right? Most of the time when you're paying for a registration fee, I mean, I've been on the board for a while. It's more than $400 for one registration fee. So that's why I was saying it doesn't appear like it's even half a person. So how did you get these numbers?
And so that is looking at their current budget and seeing, okay, we did not spend all the way up to that. And also, this year was the first year we had the budget for school leadership. That was a new budget this year. And so we set out with a budget without having ever had a budget before. So now they're able to make some of those adjustments, knowing they can cut some of those things back.
One of the challenges when we give the divisions a charge to reach a threshold for budget reduction is that oftentimes the reductions don't have a rhyme or reason. They are just trying, the idea is, how do we maintain the integrity of a thing, but also reduce the costs in pursuit of a 10% number? And so that's why sometimes the numbers don't necessarily make sense. So for example, if you look at gifted supplies, if you look at 5,200, what the team did was they said, all right, these are the supplies that we know that we need, but if we can reduce it by some indiscriminate amount, we can still make sure that our folks have all the resources they need with regard to supplies. And so it's hard to draw a dotted line between 5,200 and what specifically that eliminates. We just know that the idea is we're just trying to bring our financial obligation down to a certain point. And even with that, the overall learning and leadership budget was not able to achieve able to achieve the 10%. The most that they could do was 4.9.
Madam Chair? I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but here's where I'm at. If we set out, if the goal was a 10% decrease in every department, what was the strategy after once that 10% is handed to the team, hit this number? We go, oh, we didn't hit that number. Okay, what was the strategy? What did you choose over this, over that? And what we have is, applaud the numbers we do have as far as we're going to save in this department, this department, this department from each person who created those savings. We just don't know. We don't have the information now to because it's getting down into the weeds. And so we got to ask ourselves, all right, we can't get down into the weeds. Then why didn't we hit the 10%? And why didn't every department hit the 10%? If our projected revenue, again, and here's where, I know this is the very first presentation, maybe we should have had a section to ask questions before the first presentation, just philosophically, because if we're going into this thing, if I understand right, here's where I need to ask questions about the very beginning. Is our projected revenue including a 1% millage increase? Is that what our projected revenue includes?
I don't think our projected revenue includes a millage rate increase.
The information we got said so. Oh, it does. So it does.
It does.
All right.
The overall budget, yes.
So that's where I'm trying to get at. Before we even begin budget conversation, if we're going into this with our projected revenue, this is just my perspective. We're going into this with projected revenue with an increase in the millage of 1, which we haven't had a conversation fully about yet. And now we're talking about not hitting the 10% decreases. We're still going to, pardon any just terse language, we're going to burn through our ending fund balance. And if these numbers are accurate, if we prove this budget right here, we end the year with $12 million in the bank. Nobody No governing agency would tell us that's a good idea. I think that's, what's the percentage of that? Maybe 8% or 7%? Like, it's not even 10%. Like, the law just got passed, or per the governor's signature, that we can at least have 25% in our ending fund balance. 15% used to be the threshold. We're nowhere close to that. Like, just going into this, before we have any more presentations, this is very uncomfortable from the outset. So for everyone that doesn't hit their 10% mark, I'm going to be very curious why we didn't, why are we seeing, and to Ms. Henderson Baker's point, $500 here, $400 here. We need to be talking about programs, unfortunately. Maybe, pardon again the language, this is not reflective of the board or the superintendent. Maybe positions. Are there positions that are unnecessary at this time?
It's a great question. I think the conversation that we had internally was that we wanted to make sure we did everything possible without touching people. And I think the Learning and Leadership Division budget is a little different than everyone else's because it really is the core of our organization's work. So if there was a department that we wanted to protect, to make, the outset of my remarks were that we're trying to maintain our focus on academics and operational sustainability. So the bigger challenge in learning and leadership is how do we maintain our academic integrity and not cut people? We could very easily hit a 10% reduction if we start talking about people. That has complexities unto itself. Contracts have been issued, and as a general matter, our approach was, or what was communicated from me to our team, was that we don't want to touch people. But if we get to a point where we have to, that's obviously a larger conversation that we have to have with the board.
To finish that, I appreciate that, and that is your job, and I do appreciate the way in which you set up the team to do this work and to not, to protect the people at all costs. Absolutely, that is what I would want to do as well. And if I could use this moment to say, if the state legislature would give us more, give public schools more funding, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
That's correct.
We wouldn't be talking about whether or not we have to increase property taxes, which is the very last thing I want to have a conversation about right now.
Yeah.
So I just want everybody to hear, in me, there's angst, not at the team, not at the superintendent, not at you guys, but at the fact that we don't have all the funds we need to do what we want to do, what our kids need us to do for them.
We've been beating that drum for a long time.
Right.
The wild card in this budget proposal also is that, remember, we don't have revenues from the state.
Right.
So we're operating on projections. And these projections are a little bit harder to come by as they have been in the past. So, maybe what we get from the state is a little bit more aggressive than we thought, but we're trying to be as conservative as we can.
All right, and I'll end, thank you, and I'll end just by this part of my, I'm sure I'll say some more words, but I'll end this section just by saying, as much as I want to put every dollar we possibly can into our budget, we are still dealing with a reality that our community cannot sustain an increase in property taxes right now. And with this budget, and this will be my ending point, I think, with this budget and leaving us with an ending fund balance of only $12 million, with SB 33 right around the corner capping property taxes, property assessments at 3%, we can't sustain it. Like, I think we have to be thinking, just generally right now, I think we have to be thinking general ending fund balance. We have to be thinking about how can we keep money in that account, because we are going to be in a situation next year with a whole different conversation, and in 2 years, absolutely a different conversation if funding doesn't change at the Capitol.
Well, we've got to restore that, right? And so that's a different conversation than when do we need to operate the system? Because actually what we need to operate the system comes in two places. It's the daily operations, but then there are obviously times of the year where we depend on our ending fund balance because we're not generating revenue. And so that's part of the reason why we built this with a presumption of a millage rate increase, because there are resources that we need to be able to maintain our district throughout the course of the year in every season.
Right. Right, thanks.
So, yeah. But I would also just submit to the board, this budget proposal, all the budget proposals that you'll hear this evening have gone through multiple iterations. You know, we're trying to find where we can make additional cuts, and trust me, the teams have been put through the ringer on that.
So, Madam Chair, if I could just finish where I was. I know Trey had some things that he wanted to get off his shoulder, but I'm going to use a statement that Trey, in trying to help me out in agreeing. I agree, Trey, you're spot on for the most part with a lot of things that I was trying to say, except for the people. So I'm not saying people at all. But here is my thing, and something you stated, I always like to use people words at the end. Our community cannot sustain increase in a property tax. And I'll take that a little further and say long-standing citizens who are vested in our community, who have grown up here, who are products of Newton County school system, who have planned on going nowhere, raising their entire families and generations of families, years and years and years here, cannot sustain an increase at all. I think you all know how I felt about that this past year, and I'm going to stick with that the entire time frame. They cannot. But Madam Chair, going back to the question that I was posing, and I understand this part is hard to touch. I get that. I just don't like the numbers here and there that do not make sense, right? Because it doesn't seem like, to me, with all due respect, a true conversation was had among the division. And there's no disrespect to anybody. And I can just use an example. When you just had to turn around and ask a question about how something was derived. And as the chief, you should know that when we're coming to a budget meeting, with all due respect. So I do think this 4.59%, if we could become, take a look again, have a conversation again. That's just my issue. I just don't like just kind of numbers thrown here and there. And I do like for the knowledge, or if I ask a question, for the answer to be there, right?
I do want to just add, our budget did also receive approximately $65,000 from strategy and support. So that also offsets our percentage because PBIS was moved under my division.
Just one more thing, Madam Chair, this is, we can have whatever conversation the board wants to have. We weren't necessarily prepared to have a millage rate discussion this evening, but I do want to say, I gave a presentation to our Board of Commissioners last week, and I lifted up for our community the fact, and to the credit of this board, that over the past 6 years, this board has lowered millage rates, the consecutive years at 30-year lows. But the cumulative effect of those millage rate reductions have come at a cost of about $19 million for the school system. I think the question that I've posed is, what could any public institution do with an additional $19 million? And in this instance, what could any public institution do with just a fraction of that, right? So while there will eventually down the road have to be a conversation about that, I think that within the context of all of the challenges that public school systems are facing, that we've talked about, there's a laundry list of them. This board has given back to the community resources that the school system could use. And I think that that's something that the community should be aware of, right? That it hasn't always necessarily been convenient for this school system to lower the millage rate, but the larger responsibility I think that this board has taken on is a recognition that it is a part of a larger institution, which is our community as a whole. And there are times, I believe, that when the benevolence that has been given should be returned back to the school system. So I just share that because we are obviously in a place where we've got to find additional revenue sources to sustain the school system.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, next up, I just want to invite Dr. Mike Barr to the podium, Division of Operations.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Education. This evening, I will present the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget for the Division of Operations, which emphasizes cost control, operational efficiency, and responsible stewardship of resources. The FY 2027 proposed budget reflects targeted reductions across multiple departments while maintaining core services. For comparative purposes, the FY 2026 approved budget and the FY 2027 proposed budget totals are presented for board review. The budget recommendations for maintenance and operations were developed to support the goal of reducing the budget. Although the budget remains relatively stable with minimal growth tied to critical needs, it follows reductions made to the FY 2026 budget. It comes at a time when the cost of parts and labor for facility maintenance and repair continue to rise significantly. To operate within these financial constraints, the department has identified efficiencies in utilities, supplies, equipment, and contracted services. Even with those adjustments, the proposed budget does not include funding for significant mechanical repairs, major preventative maintenance, or large-scale painting of buildings and classrooms. The impact is a continued focus on reactive maintenance and priority repairs, with reduced capacity to address facility needs and to respond to unexpected larger maintenance and repair issues. Procurement reductions reflect continued efforts to reduce expenditures and align spending with operational needs. The proposed budget for safety and security includes a reduction associated with shifting from a contracted service model for SROs to district-employed officers while maintaining coverage at each campus. Under this model, district-employed officers would serve all elementary and middle schools, as well as the Newton College and Career Academy, while contracted services would remain in place at the high school level. This approach enhances staffing flexibility and ensures the program remains closely aligned with the district's mission and operational priorities. Any such change would be implemented in accordance with the district's existing contractual obligations for these services. Transportation reductions are based on a careful review of fleet needs and operational practices. Engine replacements and other costs have been adjusted based on actual conditions, allowing us to reduce expenditures while maintaining safe and reliable service. Even with a strong focus on reductions, we are making limited, targeted investments that improve long-term efficiency. Investments in energy management and work order systems will enhance cost control, and bus driver uniforms support recruitment and retention in a critical area. All personnel adjustments are budget neutral. Positions in safety and security are offset through reductions in contracted services, reinforcing our focus on cost efficiency and sustainability. An executive director of facilities and transportation position is included in the budget and is budget neutral with a slight savings. This addition is intended to enhance strategic oversight, support organizational continuity, and strengthen succession planning within the Division of Operations. In summary, this budget reflects a disciplined approach to reducing costs, aligning resources, and maintaining essential services. The Division of Operations has prioritized efficiency, eliminated or reduced essential expenditures, non-essential expenditures, and positioned the district to continue delivering core operational services in a fiscally responsible manner. As previously stated, this budget reflects a deferred maintenance approach to facilities. Deferral of maintenance increases long-term costs, elevates operational risk, and results in insufficient resources to address repair needs. I shared this to raise awareness of the trade-offs associated with achieving the desired budget reductions and to support future discussions as you review this proposed budget. Madam Chair, Superintendent Bradley, that concludes all that I have prepared.
Thank you, Dr. Barr. Board members, do you have any questions?
Page 34. I don't know if District Employee School Resource Office. reduction of $725,000.
Right, yes, sir.
That's a reduction.
It is a reduction, but the expenditure is offset.
Transfer.
Right, it's an increase in district employees, right? That's for third-party contract, what we currently spend, right? And then this would, the proposal includes hiring district employee SROs at our middle schools and for the Newton College Career Academy, and leaving contracted services in place at the high schools.
So the money is still being spent, it's just in a different
It
section area.
is a decrease in salaries.
Right. But it's made up in a different area.
That's
It may be a,
correct,
di-
yes.
it
It's
may
in-
be a
it's in
decrease in
salaries and
total.
benefits.
Right, it's moved to a different section.
When that occurs, you should give me some type of leeway. That's where it is. I can't find it when I'm looking at a raw number like this.
Okay. We can provide it to you all together, all the information together.
Okay.
Mr. Baker, I think you had a question?
It's the same thing.
Oh,
Just
okay.
wanted to point out that conference registration, membership, dues and fees for $510. So it's the same comment as before.
Right, and I won't look back, but I believe that we looked at the individuals who attend those conferences and what those actual expenditures are for those events. That's the way we approach that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, the total decreased of your budget is 659,870. Did I get that right? Somebody tracking along with me? What percentage of that? Towards the 10% goal. 659,870, is that correct? All right, and then what's that percentage? 4.13. Thank you.
I do want to just draw the board's attention to Dr. Barr's closing remarks to provoke some discussion among the board. The reductions that have been articulated by Dr. Barr are significant, and they put the school system in an awkward position, a difficult position in the case of unexpected repairs, right, for which there just would not be any resources for. The picture that we tried to paint was particularly around HVAC. For example, there is a $100,000 repair to the HVAC system at one of our elementary schools right now that has not been budgeted for. But if you compound multiple schools, 2 schools, 3 schools, with the reductions that have been outlined here, it most certainly puts us in a compromising position. The aesthetics of our buildings also would be challenged when we're talking about the restoration of things that we generally take for granted, but are important. Things like pine straw and minor aesthetic improvements. I mean, I remember last year, just for a special event that we were hosting at the Career Academy, I ordered additional pine straw to spruce up the space because we were inviting our community in for a critical event. We had resources available to do that. And so I just want to make sure that we're forecasting to the board that if in fact this is, the will of the board, that those kinds of things would go away. I am particularly concerned about unexpected repairs, though.
Madam Chair. All the more reason to have more than 12 million in the bank at the end of the year, because I heard the same thing and was going to make that comment, that if we're taking out preventative maintenance and those type things from, and, catastrophic event, whatever, we don't have that. We just have it in the savings account now. And now we're going to use however much out of our savings account until we're down to 12 million. I'm just saying that doesn't sound fiscally responsible for this board. Everyone has to make their own decision, but that does not sound fiscally responsible to remove the maintenance items that we potentially need, and then also to be using up our ending fund balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think fair observation. I think the only question is, where do the resources come from? And remember, again, this was built with an assumption. And so, even if we receive revenues from the state that are higher than we expect, and we've got our fingers crossed for that, I'm not sure that that is enough to fulfill some of the things that we've obviously outlined as reductions, so that we can hit a threshold in this budget.
Comment, may I make a comment? I'm misunderstanding your thrust on the HVAC approach. If we got maintenance that we gotta do, I don't think we should be putting that in jeopardy in a budget discussion. If we know we got those scheduled type jobs coming, put them in the budget.
I think there was an addition, that was an increase, if I remember correctly, for HVAC from last year's budget to this year's budget.
I believe there was a decrease
Oh,
from
okay.
last year. We added, you're talking about from this fiscal, which we added back 100,000.
Yes, so it was, yeah,
Because the expenses have already exceeded what we
exactly,
projected for this fiscal.
exactly. So I think they are trying to be preempted in that by increasing that section of it.
There's been an 83% increase in labor hours since FY '22, between FY '22 and FY '26. So that's some of the challenge that's embedded in that. The cost of parks, none of it's, it has all increased.
All right. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, that is academics and operations. And if you remember from my opening remarks, the crux of this entire budget was to maintain academics and operations. And so we painted a picture that hopefully is starting to come to be a little bit more clear that there are some resources that are needed.
Well, one other comment, going forward, we know we have a small gas issue around now. So how are we enrolling the difficulties ahead with gas prices increases 25, 30% in our transportation? And how are we looking at that cost that we think our employees going to be traveling from point A to point B? That's going to be an increase. And I'm interested to know, how have we taken the issue now and put it in our budget? Because it's not going to hit us real hard until about 3 or 4 months from now. We're trying to figure out what happened.
We reviewed the budget today, and we know we're good. We think we are good for this fiscal year, right? But we know we're have experienced increases in fuel costs this year. If those fuel costs continue through next year, this budget does not include those kinds of increases. So we would have to make some kind of.
If we know that potential cost is there, then we're doing ourselves, community, a disservice not to put those costs in the budget.
Yes, sir.
There's no increase. It's actually the same number, right? Yeah.
Can I just put Dr. Barr on the spot just before he leaves? I just want to throw out a number. It's a math question. That if we are trying to put money back into the budget to at least give us some breathing room so that there is a measure of confidence that we could respond to unexpected maintenance failures, what would that number be to feel a little bit more comfortable? Is it 200,000? Is it 300,000? Is it 400,000? Just to give the board a sense.
None of those numbers.
It's a percentage of the overall number, right?
It would be around, to feel comfortable, right, would be around $1 million, right? To know that, to sit here and say, I have some ability to repair HVAC and plumbing is primarily the two issues. I would think would be around $750,000, honestly, so that I'm not saying the words that I have said this evening.
That would be enough to cover increased cost of transportation, gas, and. or
I was just thinking about facilities. I'd have to go back and take a look at fuel cost, increased fuel cost.
Mr. Johnson brought up a good point about the increase. I mean, we're all feeling it right now, but maybe something to go back and look at. All right, anyone else? All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, next is Dr. Sheila Thomas, Division of Strategy and Support.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. I am pleased to present an overview of the FY27 proposed budget for the Division of Strategy and Support Services. As we approach this budget cycle, our work was grounded in two core commitments: alignment to our district's organizational priorities and a continued focus on meeting the needs of our students and staff. We carefully evaluated each expenditure through a focused lens, distinguishing between what is essential to sustain student success and operational stability and what, while beneficial, is not critical at this time. This approach allows us to prioritize resources in a way that protects the integrity of our core systems while remaining responsive to the financial reality before us. With that framework in mind, I will walk you through the FY27 proposed budget and highlight key recommendations for the Division of Strategy and Support Services. As reflected in the chart, the FY27 proposed budget represents a strategic reduction across all departments when compared to the FY26 amended budget, resulting in an overall 10% reduction. The Strategy and Support Services budget decreased by $25,140. Student and Family Supports decreased by $95,220, which includes a $62,250 transfer to the Division of Learning and Leadership to support the PBIS program. The Instructional Technology and Media Services budget decreased by $77,733, and the Technology Services budget decreased by $140,965. Overall, these adjustments reflect a deliberate approach focused on reducing expenditures while maintaining essential services and aligning resources to the district organizational priorities. Now, I will highlight the proposed budget reductions, beginning with the Department of Strategy and Support Services. Targeted opportunities were identified to reduce non-essential expenditures while preserving the core functions and supports that directly impact students and staff. These reductions include contractual services, supplies and equipment, employee travel, and dues and fees. Next, in Student and Family Support, reductions were identified for programs, operations, and other areas, which include the transfer of funds to the Department of Student Services to support the PBIS program, as well as adjustments to the Hispanic Family Engagement Program, Rethink Ed software, books, materials, supplies, equipment, employee travel, stipends, and contractual services. Even with these adjustments, we remain focused on prioritizing support that addresses the social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students. Next, in Instructional Technology and Media Services, targeted reductions were identified in both areas of programs and operations. This includes eliminating book creator and movie licensing, along with adjustments to supplies and substitute costs. Maintaining other core instructional technology platforms will continue to support teaching, learning, and communication across the district. Finally, in Technology Services, reductions were identified across programs and operations, including streamlining technology maintenance programs, contractual services, supplies and equipment, as well as employee travel. Now, at the same time, we have ensured that the infrastructure and systems necessary to support daily district operations remain intact. While reductions were necessary, the Division of Strategy and Support Services continues to make intentional investments aligned to advancing district performance and supporting the district's future direction, which includes having a continued investment in media center book collections to strengthen literacy and expand student access to high-quality resources, and maintaining Hazel Health Services to ensure students have access to critical mental health supports, recognizing that addressing non-academic barriers remain essential to student success. Furthermore, to support continuous improvement, communication resources will be sustained, including Parent Square, which will continue to be highly utilized to strengthen engagement with families. In addition, investments in network maintenance and software will be maintained, including Microsoft licensing, firewall protection, the Cisco phone system, and Incident IQ. These systems remain essential to ensuring the reliability, security, and efficiency of district technology operations. Importantly, funding the community and schools will be preserved at West Newton Elementary, Clements Middle, and Newton High School, with Middle Ridge Elementary continuing to be supported through the Community and Schools Partnership Grant. This program will remain a critical support structure, providing wraparound services that connect students and families to the resources needed for success. In addition to budget adjustments, key personnel investments are proposed to strengthen service delivery. This includes upgrading one climate specialist position to Coordinator of Counseling Services and adding one technology specialist level 1 position to directly support our schools. Additionally, there is a pending position that Dr. Bradley will discuss later regarding a supervisory role to support the technology specialist. In closing, the Division of Strategy and Support Services remains committed to supporting students and staff through thoughtful and strategic decision-making. While reductions were necessary, every effort was made to minimize the impact on the services our students, staff, and families rely on each day. This budget ensures continued support services for our students and staff that are essential to their success. It prioritizes the resources and systems that directly support teaching, learning, and well-being. Madam Chair, this concludes my overview of the Division of Strategy and Support Services for FY27 proposed budget, and I will now pause for questions or comments.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Board members, do you have any questions? Ms. Henderson Baker, you want to go ahead?
I want to point out something before, well, actually, I can go ahead because I don't really have a question.
Okay.
Page 45, we have old 45s, so I know mine doesn't have the one technology person, neither does Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, mine doesn't either. If you'll flip back, can you flip back one slide? Yeah. Yeah, we all have 0 on here, so that needs to be changed to one new position for technology services, and then just one position upgrade, okay.
And then the only comment I have, so I'll use Dr. Thomas yours, like employee travel in both spots, right? You have 11,000 on page 41, and then you have 5,000 on page 43.
Ms. Anderson Baker, thank you.
Well, I'm pretty loud, but, okay. So you got 11,000 on page 41, and then you have 5,000 on page 43. This would not cause me to ask a question because it seems like more than one person in a more accurate or somewhat realistic number, just to put that out there. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just for clarity, on page 44, you mentioned the Communities and Schools grant, and then you have 129,500. This is not an additional cost, right? You're just showing the investments that we have. This isn't additional to the budget. Okay.
Right. This is
And then-
already in the budget.
Right.
That's correct.
But the grant money's not already in the budget, right? We're just looking at local revenues. Like, we don't have federal dollars in there, do we?
No, we do not.
So this is paid for with federal dollars, right?
This is paid for with a partnership grant, not federal money.
Okay, but still, the partnership grant is not in the revenues, is it?
That is correct.
Is it or is it not?
We do not actually get the money.
Value.
Okay. I'm still glad we're showing the investment that we're putting into the communities and schools. I wish we could do them in every school. Obviously, we had talking about how expensive everything is, but that's a great program. But just to our board members, it's not an increase in the budget, and it's also not even coming out of our budget. So, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Just to also
Wait,
clarify.
community
sorry.
and school does come out of our budget. We pay for half.
We pay for 3 schools, and then there's one school that the grant, the partnership grant pays for.
So what's listed here, the 129,500, is an expense that we actually pay to someone.
That is correct.
It is not covered by the grant.
Right, we pay half, correct?
Well, it is half, it may be 45 or 50, 55%.
For each person.
Yes, that is correct. I'm sorry, did I misunderstand what you were saying?
Well, when I look at the decrease page, that means we're not spending that money this year. And it means our budget should go down. Those are red numbers. Then we get to the next one, and it's like, here's how we're investing in our kids, but it doesn't necessarily mean the budget's going up. It's just showing where we spend the money.
That is correct.
So that's the only thing that, I mean, it's just a brain thing. Like, it's not just debits and credits, right? It's, we're showing how we're investing the money, but here's where we're, so it's not a ledger sheet, which is great. This is fine. No problem. I'm getting there.
Critical
I'm
investment
getting
that we
there.
wanted to highlight.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I say something? So at our board retreat, I did point out, because technology services falls up under Dr. Thomas, and I'm going to assume technology security does too. We're gonna call it security. So at our board retreat, I pointed out that one of the areas in the budget that I felt when we had a board retreat a couple weeks back, that I felt really did not need a decrease or could not afford a decrease was technology, in terms of safety and security around that. And I use, for example, we can use Henry, who got, had the incident with their HR, with people getting their files. There was somebody up north, maybe, I don't think it was Cherokee, somebody else, who had an incident. So just using school systems over the last couple of years who have been getting attacked either by phishing scams or ransomware. I do feel like, and that's a conversation that would have to be had in executive session, because that is a security according to the affidavit. But I do feel like that is an area, and I said that at the board retreat, that we really can't afford to kind of shave, because we do need to make sure the school system in terms of that is set up for success. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, that's a good
and
point.
remind you.
Yeah, that's a good point. We brought that actually back to the team to make sure that there were no cuts or reductions, because to be honest with you, not investing in that could actually cost us significantly
Especially if you get
down the
arrested.
line if you have a cyber attack. I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge the position upgrade that is not included in the budget, but was mentioned by Dr. Thomas. I am not a fan of one-off position upgrades unless it happens within the context of a reorganization, right? And so I do think that we've reached a point where we do need a technology person, for lack of a better word, that has supervisory responsibility. But right now, we're not necessarily prepared to communicate exactly what that is, because we would have to do job description. We would have to have a title that corresponds with our organizational model. The board would need to review the organizational model. So my point is that if the board wants to approve the resources to upgrade a position, that's fine, but it would take some time for us to fit that appropriately within the organizational model.
Thank you. Can I just get a total again? Total savings of
$339,058.
$058, and that's what percentage of the previous budget?
10%.
10%?
10 points. Something.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dr. Thomas. Madam Chair, next up is the Division of Human Resources, and I'm going to invite Chief Nairi Sanders to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am pleased to present an overview of the proposed FY 2027 budget for the Division of Human Resources. On the summary slide, the proposed FY 27 budget is $278,642, reflecting a decrease of $24,199 from the amended FY 26 budget. You will see on the next slide that this budget reduction is primarily due to the strategic restructuring of the fingerprinting and criminal background check process for employees. The revised process will streamline scheduling by allowing new hires to select appointment times that are convenient for them while reducing in-person traffic at the Human Resources Office. This enhancement will improve operational efficiency and allow staff to be more responsive to employee needs. The next slide highlights the strategic investments included in the proposed budget across two key areas. First, investments supporting continuous improvement are focused on enhancing recruitment efforts through college recruitment events, job fairs, and other targeted strategies designed to strengthen our ability to attract and secure qualified candidates. Second, the proposed FY27 budget includes critical investments that support talent management and daily operations through the renewal of key software systems, including PowerSchool applicant tracking and employee records, frontline absence management, and Vector Solutions training and compliance software. The talent management and onboarding system facilitates efficient job posting, applicant tracking, and onboarding processes to support the recruitment and hiring of qualified staff. The absence and substitute management system is essential for securing qualified substitute teachers and maintaining continuity of instruction during teacher absences. Additionally, the safety and compliance software system supports the tracking of required staff training and monitoring of annual compliance requirements. Collectively, these systems improve efficiency, streamline operations, and strengthen our management of personnel processes. In the area of personnel, the only proposed change is the upgrade of an existing position from coordinator to director. This position reclassification is intended to align the division's organizational structure with that of other departments of similar size and scope across the district. It will also add an additional layer of leadership within the division to support stronger reporting structures and enhance communication across functional areas. If approved, the position will supervise 5 staff members and provide leadership oversight for critical personnel functions, including recruitment, hiring, retention, onboarding, and offboarding. Madam Chair, this concludes my overview of the proposed FY27 budget for the Division of Human Resources. I welcome any questions or discussion at this time.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Sanders?
Would you like my calculation? I see. You got it?
Is it 24,199 at 8%?
Well, there was also an offset because $7,000 was added to my budget from, I believe, the superintendent's budget. So it should be about 9.7.
Ooh, all right then.
I do want to just double down on the conversation on the topic of position upgrades, one-off position upgrades, maybe a little uncomfortable. I think if the board, and I do think that there is a restructuring to our HR division that can provide some efficiencies and better services to our schools, but that would have to come within the context of a reorg. So I just want to say that if the board does approve the position upgrade, doesn't mean it would be immediate. It would be within the context of a structural redesign, which we would start working on.
Thank you.
What's the timeline for that? And the only reason why I asked, I know you guys were trying to do that last year, but last year it was just like that was a conversation, and I felt like it was just kind of snuck in there with like no kind of, sorry it was, with no kind of like heads up, right? And so what would be, so I'm going to go ahead and ask that question, what would be the timeline for it?
Certainly within the first semester of the year, first half of the year.
First half of the year, the fiscal year, or like the calendar year, for clarity?
I would think that it would be before the end of 2026.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Madam Chair, next up, we want to invite the mighty
sneaking.
Sherry Partee, Department of Communications. Ms. Partee.
Good evening, Dr. Bradley, Madam Chair, and members of the board. I am pleased to present an overview of the Communications Department's proposed budget for fiscal year 2027. Following a comprehensive review, the proposed budget reflects a reduction of approximately $38,000 or 13.4% compared to the current fiscal year. This decrease was achieved through intentional cost-saving measures, including reductions in contractual services for videography, design work, and photography. We have also reduced the line item for printed publications and also graduation supplies, including student yard signs. Additionally, having invested in new camera equipment last year, we have reduced that line item as no additional purchases are anticipated. We have identified 3 primary strategic investments aligned to our organizational priorities. First, we will continue to invest in district recognition programs that celebrate the outstanding contributions of both our classified and certified staff. These include our Teacher of the Year Awards celebration, the Hero Awards, and our Mid-Year Awards program, which recognizes our media specialist, support professional, and counselor of the year. Second, ADA compliance remains a critical priority. While this work has always been important, it now carries added urgency as new Department of Justice regulations require full compliance by April 24, 2026. This includes all district and school websites, social media platforms, digital publications, videos, and even email communications. To support this effort, we have budgeted for both ADA remediation of existing content and ongoing compliance monitoring. Finally, we will continue to invest in website hosting services to support the Newton County Schools district website and all school websites, ensuring reliable and accessible communication platforms for our community. These 3 areas represent the primary investments within our fiscal year 2027 budget. This proposed budget does not include requests for any new positions or position upgrades. Thank you for your continued support of the Communications Department and the important role it plays in connecting our schools and community. Madam Chair, this concludes my report. I will now turn the program back over to Dr. Bradley.
Madam Chair.
Board members, do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, I do. Sherry, say your percentage again, because you said it up front. Say it again.
13.4%.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. 13.
May I?
Go ahead.
So if you were to have contracted services like help, would it be in your budget or like salaries, and where would it live? In her budget? And there's no budget for that at all?
I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm saying of all the departments on the planet that need assistance, you're an army of 2.
Right.
And I know occasionally you have some help that's able to come in and,
Yes.
and some part-time or
We
something.
can't do it
some
all,
contracting
right.
work.
That's correct.
Is that in this budget? And if it's not,
Yes.
it isn't, which one, where is it at? I'm on the I'm on the detail, if that helps.
Contractual service.
I don't know where.
Yeah, do you see it?
Well, that's minus 5,000. Contractual
I
services.
did reduce it.
So she does have a number for contractual services,
She
but
just took money out of it.
you know, one of the things that we did, I shared a memo with our team earlier this year that we've had a little bit of overlap. So when we would have contractual services that might be requested from a particular division, oftentimes it would come out of Sherry's budget. And that's just because we did not have organizational clarity. We've cleaned that up. And so now our individual teams know that when they need specific communications support, and we say communications can run the gamut between printing, video, other technical support, graphic design, that those services would have to come out of their individual division budgets so that they don't drain communications. But communications, because it's only a 2-man team, really does need to have a contractual services reservoir. because they can't do all the work that they need to do by themselves.
Okay, I just don't see it. That's like,
Here, it's page 48.
all right,
Yes, line 5.
goodness
Outside
gracious.
design work.
And,
as
Outside
needed.
design work.
okay.
All right,
yeah,
that's what threw
need
me
to
off.
tweak that.
Yeah.
Tweak
Okay.
that.
'Cause, okay. And that's a decrease.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question. So for the graduation supplies, the signs, the reduction of 13,300, that takes them completely out, or,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, is the plan, and I'm only asking, is there a plan to ask somebody who might be a partner in ed or somebody who, to pay for them? And I'm gonna bring this, and I'm gonna say this why. Because we forget, right, we're over 60-something%, right, free and reduced lunch, have always been. And for a child to walk across the stage, make it K through 12, right, knowing that number, knowing what kind of community we come from, I think it's important that some of them don't have a family, right, or the funds to pay for a graduation sign or design. And that's the only little sign they get. Like, oftentimes you can ride through the community and you see elaborate signs, and then there are a lot of houses that the only sign you see with a child recognizing that they have graduated, congrats class of 26, is the sign produced by the school system, right?
We actually had this conversation. I appreciate the remarks. We had this conversation. It really centered around to what extent should these kinds of things fall on the school system. So one thing we said was maybe these things come out of individual school budgets. And then the second is maybe we rely on a community partner or our foundation, because we do think that the school signs are important, right? They're not insignificant. But the question of whether or not they should be a part of our organizational responsibility was subject to some discussion.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you got to cut costs. I just would like for it to be an ongoing conversation with maybe somebody else, maybe somebody in the community gonna watch this meeting and see it. You know, you can put your logo on it, you know, so that's advertising for yourself. So I do feel like it's important. And some of our kids, they don't go beyond that stage, right? They go straight to workforce. So this is the only celebratory moment they get in terms of that.
Yeah, I don't know who waves that banner. If we're cutting it from our budget, is there a way we can wave that banner with another organization? Or pass that, okay. So that, and, because I would hate for one high school to do it and then two others not to do it as well. So it would be great if they could be all on the same page with either their partners in ed or their foundation. Great ideas.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. Madam Chair, members of the board, last up, I'm going to invite Ms. Erica Robinson for the Division of Business Services. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening again. I would like to share an overview of the proposed fiscal year 27 budget for the Division of Business Services. Most of the budget requests remain consistent with those from fiscal year 26. However, two departments, which are General Administration and Support Services, reflect a combined reduction of $70,972. Additionally, as outlined earlier in the presentation, student enrollment is expected to decrease, leading to a decrease in school budget allotments of $60,750. The Business Services Department expects an increase in general liability insurance premiums. However, proposed budget reductions help to offset this cost, resulting in a net increase of $15,936. Next, I will highlight the proposed budget reductions within business services. In the area of programs and services, we have reduced the stipend allocation for new employee orientation based on historical data, resulting in a savings of $1,000. Within operations, we identified efficiencies in maintenance and programming fees, along with reductions in supplies and computer equipment for a combined savings of just over $4,300. In the final category, employee travel has been reduced, generating an additional $500 in savings. Moving on to general administration, in the area of operations, we have reduced attorney fees by $15,000 based on anticipated needs, along with a $5,000 reduction in supplies. We also identified savings of $4,900 in computer equipment and copier lease expenses. In the other categories, several adjustments were made. Funding for GSBA strategic planning was reduced by $9,000 as this was a cost for fiscal year 26 only. Employee travel was decreased by $5,000 and dues and fees were reduced by $11,500. Lastly, within support services, postage expenses were reduced by $13,572. Overall, these reductions were made thoughtfully, focusing on areas where we could limit impact on daily operations while still maintaining essential services and support. Next, I would like to review the strategic allocations outlined in the proposed budget for the Division of Business Services. Investments aligned to advancing division performance and future strategic direction include funding to continue to support our new employee orientation program. This investment is designed to strengthen onboarding practices, ensure new staff are well informed about district policies, and promote early engagement and retention across all departments. To ensure the continued strength and efficiency of our operations, the budget includes strategic investments in key support services. These include professional services such as the annual financial audit, ACA reporting, and legal counsel fees, all of which are essential for maintaining compliance and sound governance. Additionally, funds are allocated for membership in GSBA and Griffin RISA, which provide valuable training, resources, and advocacy support. The budget also accounts for general liability insurance to protect the district against potential risks and liabilities, ensuring a safe and secure environment for our students, staff, and visitors. The Division of Business Services is not proposing any position upgrades or new positions in the fiscal year 27 budget. Madam Chair, this concludes the budget overview for the Division of Business Services. I will pause here for any questions.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Robinson? Mr. Bailey? Will you tell me again your total reduction in the overall total? Was it 70,972? Was that right?
That was for two, that was for,
Both of the,
yes.
okay, that's fine. I just want to double check.
I got it at 115, 786 the total at 4.34%.
I will say the superintendent's office did meet its 10% threshold.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Just chimed in out of nowhere over there.
You're out of order.
We appreciate you, Mr. Roundtree. Thoroughly embarrassed. My little $5,000. I know. Yeah.
Thank you.
What was the question again?
Well, decrease, I had it at 115, 786, is that what you had?
Yeah.
Yes, that is the total of the numbers there, but I do like to exclude the school budgets because that is not, those are based off of student enrollment, and so their allotments are different. So if I just include those, the three at the top, the number was 54,636.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. All right. Board, it's just me and you. I think consistent with my opening remarks, what you found is what I said, which is some of our divisions were able to hit their 10% threshold and just a couple were not. That's not insignificant. I think it's also important to note that we specifically also said that the objective of this budget was to pursue strategic reductions while maintaining operational integrity and our focus on academics. My sense is that there are some conversations that the board probably want to have around restoring some of the resources that we purged from the operational budget and then maybe even some conversations about the academic division's budget. But I just do want to commend our team and commend really everyone. It's just not a chief effort. It's a team effort, and we've been going through this for several months. That really began with just one-on-one conversations with me and me saying, no, please go back, find additional cuts. And that's really hard to do when you've got people that care so deeply about the integrity of their programs, the integrity of their divisions, the goals that they have, their personal evaluations, all of those kinds of things. And just the fact that they care deeply about kids and the school system. And so this is hard work. I want to thank the board for your attention, but I also want to make sure that I avail myself for any questions or any direction between now and next week when we present formally the tentative budget.
Thank you. Any comments, board members?
Sure. If I would just like to reiterate my personal perspective, not the perspective of the board. And again, I just think we're in difficult times because we've had such great gains this year, over the last 3 years, but this year it seems to manifest now. We're seeing results, at least in the metrics that people gauge our success on. I don't want to stop that momentum for sure. At the same time, I'm uncomfortable with a 268, 795, 035, almost $269 million budget. And that's a decrease over last year, I understand, by $1.5 million. Like, kudos, team, for finding all of those little things that you could.
That's a decrease while expenses have gone up.
Correct,
So
yes.
it's actually deeper than what a person might see on paper.
Right. But my point is still that the revenue, projected revenue as of now, and I know we don't have all those figures in and set in stone, but if we don't have them by next Tuesday, I don't know how this board can make a decision based on unknown revenue. When is the last, question one, when is the last day we have to legally pass a budget? It's not next week, correct?
So the final budget has to be passed by June 30th. If we do not have a final budget passed by June 30th, the board would have to adopt a spending resolution every month until a budget is passed. The tentative budget, we have to have time between the tentative budget approval and the final approval to do our advertisements and hold our public hearings. So that's why we have it set up the way that we have it set up right now, to allow time for those things to happen.
Yeah, and I appreciate the margin that we do have, and I know all those things have to be done in a legal manner. 3 weeks have to be announced and all those different things, and I get it. But we do have till June 30th. We don't have to make a decision next week, especially if we don't have the revenue from the state number yet, or our JDA projections. If we are missing key information that we have to make fiscal decisions based on, I would implore this board to not pass a budget next week if we don't know what we're getting from the state yet. That would just be my recommendation.
But what would be the ramifications if we don't pass a budget next week, a tentative budget? Let me put it to you that way, not
That's
the
good.
final budget.
I do appreciate
tentative
that.
budget.
That word's important.
Yes, exactly. So what are there ramifications if we don't pass one, other than not being able to meet the legal requirements?
It would just push our timeline out. So we would be looking at a final, if the tentative is not approved next week, we would have to either have a call meeting to approve the tentative budget, or either it would have to be the first board meeting in May, but then that's going to push our timeline very tight to get a June approval. Because I think there's only one board meeting right in June. So we'd have to work out some dates in order to get a June approval by June 30th.
So it would be better to do tentative, to go ahead and vote and approve a tentative budget, knowing that it's not going to be the final budget.
Yeah, you can make changes to the tentative budget. You can make changes all the way up until the final budget is approved.
Okay.
Okay.
We will likely be doing that.
Yeah. And every district in the state, if we don't know what our revenue is from.
Correct.
state,
I
yeah.
do just worry about the timeline. That would be my concern about, I don't mind having the special called meetings. That's fine if that's what it takes. I just
Right.
worry about a timeline. Would it not be better to let the staff go ahead and start working towards it and making it a little bit easier on y'all, I think, than to go ahead, but just knowing that this is a tentative budget. We don't want to, it's not going to be the final budget. Let's put it that way.
Right, right.
Just
And-
something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can go down that path with us next week if that's what we need to do. I want to do what's best. If we can pass a tentative budget, if that's what's best, I'm all for that. I would like to see what our counterparts in other communities are doing. Some people just have a different philosophy. Some districts will pass their budget regardless of what the revenue is, regardless of what their millage rate's going to be. They're going to pass their budget, then just move their millage rate to equal whatever they need to get. That hasn't been the philosophy of this board in my 10 years on it, but if we choose to go that route, that's something we could certainly do. I would not be a fan of setting the budget before I knew what some revenue from the state was going to be. All right, sorry, I don't want to get too long, but second point. Again, we're looking at $269 million budget with potential revenue or projected revenues at 250. So that'd be the second year in a row that we have passed what I would call an unbalanced budget. Now, I know we have ending fund balance, so maybe technically it's not non-balanced budget, but to me it is, because this is the revenue we have. Our expenses should match the revenue, or else you'll never get your ending fund balance up, right? Just philosophically. If $5 comes in and we decide we're going to spend $8, you're going to run out of money at some point. You've got to somehow save money. The only way to save money is to spend less than you bring in. And if we projected to bring $250 million in, I just don't know how we spend $268, not 2 years in a row. And that's like last year, we had great reasons to do it. We had to do the class and comp, fully fund that. We knew it was time. I'm just saying, $18 million over the revenue that we're projected to bring in does not sound fiscally responsible for this board. Then the question would be, how do we make up that revenue? And that was your question on the outset. I would like to propose some solutions. Because I don't want to be just the guy saying cut, 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 and not saying, hey, there are other options out there.
Well, we are a team, so we welcome advice
Okay.
and counsel from our.
Well, something I rarely do is go, here's what I said we could do. All right, and I apologize for even now if that sounds prideful. But we had legislation sitting on our senator's desk this year with our name on it, that all we had to do was get that to our delegation, and they would have signed it, and we'd have had a 1 penny sales tax that we could use for operations. How much do we collect in East Blast every year? 25 million? 25 million. If we had that 1 penny this year, we're not having this conversation. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, we had legislation that could have passed this session that we did not push through, and I'm not sure why we didn't. I think we were waiting to see how things would. I'm not faulting us for it. Sounds like I got a lot of energy. I'm not faulting us for it. I guess what I'm saying is we could do it next year, right? Like, there's an opportunity again. The legislation exists. We just need to, Senator Anderson was so generous to us to have that written up for us. A local legislation just for Newton County to have a 1 penny sales tax that could go to our general budget. I think that's something we've got to do, guys. That is an extra penny. I think our community would say, hey, we'll pay an extra penny. It stinks at the gas pump, but maybe for our eggs and our milk and for whatever else, is if we don't have to go up on our property taxes. I think our community, because they would have to pass it in a referendum, I think our community would go get behind that. That's just my take. And this is where I've come to you guys to go, and Superintendent, to you, because we would need your help, obviously, as the loud voice to get this across the finish line. We have been talking all night, and I've been a participant in this scarcity mindset. We don't have enough. We don't have enough. We don't have enough. 120,000 residents of Newton County. 60,000 of them will say you got plenty. And the other 60,000 may say, well, what can we do to help? And I'm saying if we can pass a referendum with 61,000 people, then it would help us tremendously, and seniors would benefit because their property taxes wouldn't go up. Those who are on fixed incomes, it would help them. So I'm just imploring our board, and I've talked too much already about it, but I would rather us have a mindset of how do we solve this problem and create more revenue than we don't have enough. Now, to the superintendent's, to his credit, he needs to do that so that we all have this conversation in public and say, what can we do? What can we do? And I just think there's something we can do.
Trey, may
Yes,
I say something? I don't think any of us argued that down when you brought it up. In fact, I asked you to look at I told you a couple of counties that had tried to do that before. I think Richmond was one that I named. And I said it was some over in that Augusta area if it wasn't Richmond. And then I believe Hall was another one that I named. I know if it wasn't Hall, it was somewhere near there. So I don't think any of us argue you down on that. I just felt like it would be stronger in numbers legislation. It could be knowing that other counties had tried to do it before and weren't successful.
And some have, though, right? Like there are a couple of, whatever that's called, an e-host, I think is what it's called.
Right.
Because whatever, like let's say we brought 25 million in revenue, we would take that off of the property tax burden. Like that's the purpose of it. That's the EH is for homestead. So educational homestead, local option sales tax. Anyway, I think it's a solution. I didn't mean to make it sound like the board wasn't supportive. I'm just saying I think we now have an opportunity, and probably other counties are going to be jumping on board with that too, because we've got to do something to encourage our state legislature to do something to help us now that we've been a little bit, handcuffed by first House Bill 581 and now SB 33. If it passes, we don't have an opt-out clause that goes away. And so we're just looking at a year or two away from not having enough money to do what we need to do for these children. And that's where I'm at. But for this year, this is where I'm struggling, because I think we can get there next year. I think we can get there the year after that, especially if we are able to pass an e-host. But for this year, it might be tightening the screws to me. It might be tightening the screws and going, man, we can't play around with $12 million in savings in the bank. A couple of big things that need to be fixed, and we're going to be in some trouble. So I would just implore our board to encourage our superintendent to at least have a conversation somewhere about maybe it's not travel and maybe it's not those small numbers that do help, but maybe there's just a few things we can do without this year in order to prepare ourselves to be better in a better situation next year, specifically if we have some legislation that helps us do that. So that's my comments. I'm scared to death of $269 million budget. I'm much more comfortable with a $250 million budget, but yeah, where do we find $19 million to cut? I don't know. And obviously that does not mean just things. And so I'm very uncomfortable with that as well. So I'm just saying I'm not saying anything, it sounds like, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just struggling. I'm telling you, there is a lot of angst in me and frustration that we're in this situation, and it's not anybody's fault. But we have a problem we've got to solve, and it's a real problem, and that is I don't think we can spend $269 million this year.
Madam Chair, may I just add something real quick? Identifying Trey's anxiety, right? So earlier you talked about people, and I said, well, I wasn't talking about people, and your anxiety around the ending fund balance. And that is a lot to make up, and I think you can't make it up with budget cuts, right? That's unrealistic, right? I mean, unless you're cutting something that's entirety, right? And people, but I don't want to mention people. But the reality is we have found ourselves in this situation before historically. Abigail and I, first year on the board, we were facing that. And the solution, we got our first year on this board being sworn in was 2011. And in 2012, within a year time frame of being on this board, we riffed Sharp. And that was the solution to increase the ending fund balance because we weren't getting a return on investment, so in terms of data and academics, right? And there is nothing worse within 1 year time frame being in this boardroom, and it's so packed with people, teachers, parents, that they are all in your face. Mr. Johnson, you remember that? All up at the podium on us, following us to our cars. So there is nothing worse than that. But the reality is, if we were to provide a historical perspective, that was the only thing that we had the opportunity to do realistically to increase that balance.
I will just say that was probably the worst time on this board, was having to make those decisions. And, you know, it's just difficult. I mean, we've got a great team. You all do a great job working together. I mean, it's amazing for you to even had found as much as you did to cut out of this budget. But it's just a hard time being in public schools and trying to balance that, what we need to spend to educate our children, but also do what's right for the taxpayers. So it's just a difficult time, but I mean, hopefully the state numbers will come in the next maybe 48 hours and we'll have a whole different discussion next week, knock on wood. So anyway, but I want to say I appreciate all of y'all being here tonight and working hard and diligently on this. And I know it's a tough decisions and things to make, and we'll continue working on it regardless if we pass a tentative next Tuesday or not. But we will definitely continue to see what we can do to make the changes and make it work. So, anyone else? Not? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Ms. Henderson Baker, Mr. Eddie Johnson, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank y'all.